Alright, when you're walking on the barrel vault, you want to stay in the low parts or the pans of the panel. You can see I can walk all over it. Just make sure I stay in the low parts of the panel. Alright, when we're laying out our barrel vault panel, you want to do at least a one pan stagger. We cannot do any straight laying. So then when we go up our rake or anything like that, you can see we want to just keep it as random as possible with that one pan minimum. Alright, so when we're fastening and laying out our barrel vault direct to deck, we'll do the following steps. So as you can see here, I marked in white where the fasteners are going to be. You can see we're going to keep them out of the low part and keep them off of the high part. So we're going to have 4 in the front nose. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 in the back as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're laying this out, start at our bottom course. Make sure I have my 1/2 inch overhang. Then you can see the fasteners are going to be marked in white chalk. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are going to go down through the top 2 inches up, and that's because we have our 1/2 inch overhang, so that's why we're going to go through the top of these. So you can see, just taking your fastener 2 inches up in the edge, fasten those just like so. Now our bottom row, anytime we go down through the top of our panel, on our bottom row, we'll take our caulking, go ahead and caulk those fasteners. Then we'll come with our touch-up kit. So the granules from the touch-up kit, and we're going to go ahead and put those in that caulking. That way we give them a little extra protection, and that's going to go ahead and conceal those fasteners as well. Now, like I said, we're going to have our fasteners in the back shelf as well. So now once I put my next row on, and as we're going up the roof, the fasteners are going to go through the front nose. So you can see we have that same 4, and we're going to stay out of the low part, out of the high part. So we're going to go the 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see those are just going to go on an angle, just like so, into the decking. And then fasteners in the back shelf, you can see we'll do the 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we just want to make sure on the back shelf we don't over tighten these. They're just going to go through just like so. And then as far as panel layout, this is the left to right panel only. So you can see we'll start from the left, and we'll go ahead and go right, and they'll fit on just like so. We want to make sure we have at least a 1 pan minimum as far as our stagger. And so now we can go ahead and continue up and across. Make sure I have my minimum of at least a 1 inch or 1 pan stagger, and then go ahead and fasten in those same spots going up the roof. Alright, when we're setting out our eave with our barrel vault direct to deck, we want to do the following steps. So first we're going to take a 1/2 sheet of our underlayment, put it down on the eave line. Then we're going to come back with a 1x3 or a 1x4, place it over that underlayment. Then we'll go ahead and take our first full sheet of our code approved underlayment and come over our 1x4. Now on the rake you have a couple choices. You can go ahead and use our EBS and put that on the rake. You can go from a 1/2 inch in to a 1 inch in, or you can go ahead and use a 1x4 and a 2x2. So we're going to go ahead and put our 1x4 even with our rake, fasten that. When I'm doing battens, I can go ahead and use screws that penetrate 1 inch exterior grade, or I can use a ring shank nail as well. And then once we get our 1x4 up our rake, we'll come back with a regular 2x2 and go ahead and bring it on the outside edge of our 1x4 that we've installed. And go ahead and fasten that with screws or ring shank nails. And then we'll come back with our bird stop. We're going to go ahead and wrap our corners 1 inch. Then we're going to place that right on top of our 1x4, just like so. And when we're fastening this, go ahead and fasten it in the low parts of the bird stop. And then on my rake, if my conditions or my code needs me to have a drip edge, you can go a couple different ways. You can use a painted drip edge right on top, just like so. Or you can get our 3.5 inch fascia. Then we can install that along our rake. And our final step is going to be getting our straight line across and making sure I have a 1/2 inch overhang on my eave. So with my barrel vault, the exposure is 14 inches. So you can come in here and mark 13.5 inches, chalk that line, and that will give me my 1/2 inch overhang. And that will be your layout for your eave and your rake. All right, so when we get our filled panels in, we can go ahead and measure our rake measurements. So we're going to go ahead and measure from a profile, and on the barrel vault it's going to be right on that edge right there. And we're going to measure into our 2x2. Go ahead and mark that one. Now whatever the measurement is going to be, we want to minus 1/4 of an inch. And then we're going to go ahead and measure each row going up our rake. And then we can come back and write down each measurement in order from eave to ridge, and then we'll have that list to go ahead and cut and bend our panels. Alright, so when we're ready to cut our rake pieces, we'll have all our measurements in order. Bring those down, go ahead and find that same profile we measured from, and we can go ahead, mark that, and we'll do a cut line and a bend line. Since we're folding that up 2x2, we can just use our 2x2. Bring it to the cutter. Then bring it to our bender and fold that up since it's going up against my 2x2. Then once we get all our pile done, we'll have them in order from the eave to the ridge and hand those up ready for install. Once we've gotten our panels for our rake all cut and bent, we'll have them in that order, in that pile. And we'll just go ahead and start from the eave and work our way up to the ridge. And we'll just install these with the normal panel, have our fold going up our 2x2. And come back, bottom row, we'll fasten to the top. Make sure we get our fastener and our back shelf as well. And we'll just grab the next one off of our pile. Fasten as normal. Continue up to my ridge. Alright, when we're setting up our 5E valley for our barrel vault direct to deck, you have a couple different options how to tie in the bird stop. So first we're just going to go ahead and bring our 1x4s even to where our edge of our valley is going to be. Put that underlayment over the top like we already showed on the eave layout. Now the first option is going to go ahead and bring in your 5E valley. Make sure we're overhanging 3/4 of an inch minimum over our eave line. And we can also go ahead and use a valley extension if we decide to do that instead, where we can simply add the valley extension, and now you'll only see the stone coat coming over the edges. Alright, so we're going to show just using the 5B here today. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and bring our valley, so it's 3/4 inch overhanging each side. Now the first option you can do is go ahead and do a cut and bend. As you can see here with our bird stop, find the edge of my valley, go ahead and fold this underneath and go ahead and cut that. And then we can go ahead and install that. Just like so. And you can see I got my valley overhanging. I got a space so the water can flow out. And you can see I'm flashed all the way to the inside corner. So we can go ahead and do that one. The other option is to go ahead and grab your bird stop, and we're going to go ahead and just bring it to the edge of my valley metal. And underneath, what we can do is go ahead and take my 3.5 inch fascia piece, and we're just going to refold that, make it a little bit smaller since I'm going to have the valley here without the 1x4. And then I can go ahead and put that in so it goes into my inside corner, and then just make sure I'm overlapping 2 inches, and then come over and butt to my valley metal here. And then of course we're going to use our washer screws for our valley pan. Now the one thing you got to keep in mind, if I'm going to go this route, you can see here once I bring my valley panels over, I'm still going to have that bird stop covering up so the birds don't go underneath. So here I'm not going to have that. So what we can do is just take a piece and go ahead and cut an extra piece of that bird stop. And now I can go ahead and just go and do my stitch screws and put that inside here. So now over my valley pan, I'll still have that bird stop so the birds can't get underneath my panels. If we don't want to see our ribbed bare metal coming out of the Eave line, we can go ahead and use a valley extension. Just make it out of our flat stock. You can cut out whatever you need for your Eave line, and then just make sure there's water stops on either side. And then we'll go ahead, place that, put our caulking, 2 layers along that one, and then we'll go ahead and bring our valley metal down, leaving it just short so it's not visible after the panels are installed. Then we'll come back with our washer screws on the outside only every 2 feet. And it's ready for panels. Alright, when we get our filled panels in, we can come back and measure our valley panels. We're showing a closed valley here, so you're going to have 2 measurements per panel. We're going to want to measure from a profile, not the edge, but a profile from that barrel vault panel. So we'll come across and we're going to measure to that first crease. So we'll have 2 measurements. We'll have a bottom measurement here, and then we'll come across with our top measurement. Now once we get these all measured, each time we measure one, we're going to come back and we're going to write our measurements for that panel, and then continue as we're going up to write those down in order from Eave to Rake. Alright, so once we get all our valley measurements in order, we're going to come down and we're going ahead and find that same spot that we measured from on the roof, and go ahead and do my measurements. Then we can create a cut line and a bend line. And the cut line will be approximately 1 inch from my bend line. We can do where we cut it. And then we'll bring it over to the bender. Hold those down to the valley. And then once I get all my pieces, I'll have them pile. They'll be in order, and I can hand that up to the roof, ready to install. Alright, we're cutting and bending our valley panels. You do have an option of keeping it open or closed. If I want to do it open, I'll just do that same fold, and I'll just fold it to that first V, like so, and then you'll have an open trough on either side. we're going to show it closed here today. As you can see on this side, it's already done. We're just going to be folding the panels down into the main V. So once I get my panels cut and bent down on the ground, we'll bring them back up. They'll be in order from the eave to the ridge. Go ahead and we'll start peeling off that stack and installing the normal. The only thing we got to make sure is we do not put any fasteners over our valley pan. We don't want to pierce the valley pan at all. So just know where your valley pan edge is, and then we can go ahead and start installing that as normal. Making sure I get my fasteners in my back shelf and my front shelf, and don't pierce the valley pan. Make sure I get my fasteners in the front and the back. When we get that one on, go ahead and come back to my next panel. And do all that as normal. Now, when we get over our valley pans, if I need to stitch panels together, we can come back with our 3/4 inch screw, and we can stitch those together, just like so. Then we can go ahead and continue with our panels. Now we can go ahead and leave our panels just like so if we get a nice clean cut, or we can go ahead and use our valley cover as well. So our valley cover is just going to be a piece that we're going to stitch on top of the panels. I can decide to add M-seal to help with blocking any debris getting into the system. Just make sure these are nice and straight as we're going up, and then we'll fasten those with that 3/4 inch stitch screw, making sure not to pierce that valley middle. Making sure my valley cover stays nice and straight. And we'll stitch it on either side of that cover. Alright, so once we've got our bird stop all wrapped around our hip corners installed, we're going to go ahead and get our hip battens going. You can use our EBS with pucks down. Go ahead and fasten through each puck. Or you can do a 1x2 and a 2x2 to get that height. Then we want to go ahead and center two of our 2x2s. We're going to go 5 inches from outside to outside. 5 inches outside to outside. And make sure these are straight because this is what our cap will be following. Alright, so once we get our fill panels in, we go ahead and be ready to measure our hip panels. We're going to measure from that profile, okay, on the side there, and we'll have 2 measurements per panel. So you can see I'm going to have a bottom measurement coming in here and also a top measurement. So as we're measuring those, we'll come back, and once we get that measurement, we're going to go ahead and write that down. And we'll continue doing that every course going from the eave to the ridge. Alright, so once we get all our measurements for our hip, we'll come down the ground, we'll go ahead and mark, cut, and bend those. So we're going to find that same profile that we measured from, and we'll put our 2 measurements on the panel. Then we can create a cut line and a bend line. So just using a simple 2x2, we can go ahead and do that cut line and mark my bend line as well. And we'll take it over to our cutter. Into our bender. The hip will fold up. to there. And then once we get those all cut and bent, we'll have our pile in order from the eave to the ridge, hand that up, ready for install. Once we get our stack of our hip panels all cut and bent, they'll be in order from eave to ridge. We'll go ahead and bring that pile up and just start installing those as normal. Getting our fasteners down through the bottom. And through the top. And we'll just come back with our next panel on our stack. Just continuing up to the ridge. Alright, so when we're doing our build-up on our ridge, you have a few different options. You can do a traditional stack of 2x2s. The height is always going to change depending on the pitch and the construction of the project. But you can do a traditional stack, as you can see we have here. Just 2 straight up. Some guys will like to do do 4 of them, so you have one on either side. And then you make sure they're only 5 inches apart max. That way the cap can fit over the top, and then they'll fold the panel up that. The other option is going to be our ridge riser brackets. And so in this way I only have 1 2x2, and then I can control the height by putting a bend on the ridge riser bracket, and then those will be just fastened down with a screw into the decking and a screw into my 2x2. So this way I only have 1 2x2. All are acceptable, just kind of depends on personal preference. Alright, when we get all our full panels and the fields done, we can go ahead and come back and measure our ridge, or if this is a head wall, it would be the same process. We're just going to measure from our bend down here to my 2x2 buildup. And then we'll go ahead and write that down and count how many panels you need across that ridge or that head wall. Alright, so when we're doing a short course on a head wall or a ridge, we'll go ahead and get our measurements from the roof, and we'll find that same spot that we measured from. We'll go ahead and do a bend line and a cut line. We want to do a minimum of 2 inches when we're on a head wall and 2 inches when we're on a ridge. We'll go ahead and do that bend line, and we can bring a straight edge and cut our cut line. Now here we're going to go ahead and go to the back of the bender and bend first. We'll put that bend in there. Pull that up. Now after we're done bending that, we'll want to take our mallet and just pop out the low parts of that panel. And then we'll go ahead and take it over to our cutter. Be ready to hand up on the roof for install. Alright, so once we get all our ridge pieces cut and bent, bring them back up. We'll want to go ahead and put a fastener in the left side. Then we'll put one in the right side. And then we'll force down the middle and finish off with fastening. And then make sure they're going the same plane as the rest of the roof. And then once you get in there, go ahead and put some fasteners in the back into my 2x2 buildup. Now if I'm using my top row, my barrel vault top row, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut my panel, we can go ahead and do that mark. All we do is need to make a cut line. We can come across and mark that. Go ahead and take it to your cutter. Then what you can do is just give this a little bend in the low parts of the panel. And just kind of give that a little, just a V-shaped form there. And then it'll be ready to go when I get to that ridge with my top row. Alright, so when I get to our short course, you can either fold up the panel 2 inches, or if I'm doing ridge with my barrel vault top row, I can go ahead and just take my hand seamers and go ahead and put a fold on that and just cut it across. Either way, we're going to install the same. We're going to install one on the left side. Make sure it's seated correctly, and then stick one in the right side. And then we'll go ahead and push down that middle and finish fastening those off. So either way is acceptable when we're using the top row. Next, we'll go ahead and either take our barrel vault foam closure, or we can use our M-seal. Go ahead and put that across. And then we'll come back with our barrel vault top row. And we'll fasten these down through the barrel, just like so. And then we'll also fasten through the top course as well. Alright, when we're doing a ridge vent, we're going to go ahead and cut in our decking here, and then we'll bring our unified steel ridge vent or equivalent on there. And then we're going to go ahead and bend up our panel up against that ridge vent. So 3/4 inch shy of my 2x2 buildup. And then we'll go ahead and fasten that as normal. Getting fasteners in my front nose and the back shelf. Make sure we don't over tighten these fasteners. We gotta keep that 3/4 inch space for our venting to happen. Now you can decide to use our barrel vault top row if you'd like. You can go ahead and put that one in there. Make sure I'm using either my M-seal or my foam closure underneath that before I put it down, one or the other. And you can use that as well if you like that look. So now this is where the buildup becomes very important. We want to make sure that we have enough buildup to hold the cap off a 1/2 inch from my panel. That way we can get that breathing. Okay, so we have our buildup where it's resting on top of there, and we have our 1/2 inch on top. And then we'll go ahead, place those, and just fasten those as normal. 2 fasteners per cap. And now we have that 1/2 inch space, so we can go ahead and get that breathing going. Now once we get our panels all installed up to our rake, we're going to go ahead and put our drip edge on if we need one. Remember, once again, I can use my 3.5 inch fascia, or I can use a painted drip, whatever which one you prefer. Then we're going to come back with our mission cap. So we're going to take our 6-inch end disc, and we're going to put that in our first cap. As you can see here, you can fold it over, keep it a full circle, or whatever you want to do. Use our stitch screws to put that into that cap. And then on the first one only, we're going to do the notch out here, as you can see here. That's just going to be notching out this one so I can go ahead and bring this nice and tight to my Eave line. And then as when we're going to fasten this, we're going to do one down through the top into my 2x2s. As you can see there. And then we'll have 2 on our side going into our fascia board. And we'll take our next cap, come over the top, and we're going to put 1 cap per row of tile. And then once again, fasten down into my 2x2. And then get those 2 in the side. And then just continue 1 cap per row of tile. Now since we went down through the top and these tiles on the rake, just like we do on our bottom row, we're going to take our caulking, go ahead and caulk those, and then take the granules from my touch-up kit, and then go ahead and put those in that caulking. Alright, so when we come up to a rake to ridge intersection, we want to do the following steps. So we're just going to notch out where that cap's going to hit my barrel, and then we'll extend this past on the east side. So come in here just like so, fasten that as normal. Then we'll come back with our next piece, and we're going to find our miter going even with our fascia boards. And we'll place that one just like so and fasten that one as normal. Then we'll go ahead and put our end disc in the end here, and then we're going to go ahead and find our cut around our rake caps, and we'll come right over the top just like so. We'll go ahead and fasten that one. And then we can go ahead and continue along our ridge. 2 fasteners per cap. And then when we're all done, we can go ahead and come back, and anything through the top, we'll go ahead and caulk those. We can caulk our cuts and dress them up with the granules into that caulking. Alright, once we get our panels all bent up and installed, if we're a little long on our 2x2s, just fold them over with a mallet. Then we'll go ahead and take our mission cap. We're going to take our 6-inch end disc. We're going to place that into our first cap. And you can go ahead and put a fold on that and cut out my fascia, so that way it sits down back nice and tight. So we'll go ahead and place this one like so, and then we'll put 2 fasteners, 1 on either side, going into my 2x2s. And then go ahead and just continue up our hip line. Placing caps, fastening on either side as you go up. Alright, so when we come up to an intersection with a hip and a ridge, we want to do the following steps. So my first side, you can see I'm just going to go ahead and notch this out, put a fold on it, notch out back where it hits on the battens here as well. And we'll go ahead and install that and fasten as normal. Then we'll come back with our caulking. We'll go ahead and caulk down this one. And then we'll find our miter. And we'll go ahead and place that into that caulking and fasten that cap. Then we'll go ahead and take our caulking once again. Then we'll go ahead and notch our ridge cap around those hip caps and place that down into that caulking. And then we can fasten this down into our batten. Then we can go ahead and caulk all of our cuts and touch those up with our granules. And then we can continue along our ridge, setting that over the top and fastening into our batten system with 2 fasteners per cap. We're doing a skylight or chimney. We're going to go ahead and find our short course down on our bottom, fold it up a minimum of 2 inches. We're going to find our corner, notch that, and go ahead and wrap that corner. We want to make sure that our bottom course is a good pan length wider than our skylight or chimney. Give us extra protection. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our second panel. So we'll measure from our profile here into the sidewall. And you can see, we'll find that corner once again and wrap that and form our panel down here at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and take our caulking, caulk that corner down the panel, and then we'll install as normal. You see as I'm wrapping that corner. Go ahead and fasten that as normal. We have that minimum of 2 inches up our sidewall as well. Once we get both sides done, we're going to come back with our barrel vault top row. We can use our barrel vault foam closure or we can use our M-seal. Go ahead and place that down first. And then we'll come back with that top row and fasten down through the barrels. And we can go ahead and fasten back into the head wall as well. And we get that on, then we can go ahead and finish up our sidewall, folding up a minimum of 2 inches, installing those as normal, getting our fasteners in our front nose and our back shelf. And then once we get to our top of our skylight or our chimney, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold up our minimum of 2 inches. We'll find that corner once again, and wrap that corner, and extend the rest of that panel out above the skylight or chimney. And we'll go ahead and fasten that as normal. Fastening the tops and the bottoms. Alright, after we get our panels all folded up around our perimeter, we're going to go ahead and do our counter flashing. You can do our 3.5 or 5 inch, put that over the top, or our Z-bar, that's like the surface mount. We'll show the Z-bar here today. So, you can see I'm just going to go ahead and grab my Z-bar, fold around my corners, and go ahead and flash to that panel that's been folded up. Install that. And then we go ahead, come up my sidewall, do my fold once again around my corners, and then we'll be ready to install that. So once we get that all done, then we'll be ready for our back panel flash. So we'll go ahead and take our flat stock and just create a chimney saddle pan. You can see I'm just going to create that same fold like the top of our panel. And then we can go ahead and go 3 or 4 inches past my corners, and then we can go ahead and fold that over. We're going to go ahead and sandwich this in caulking on either side, up the sides. And then we can go ahead and place this into that fold. And then we'll install this on the back shelf just like we do our panels. And then we can go ahead and flash or fasten the back shelf as well. And then when we're all said and done with that, then we can go ahead and caulk our perimeters. And then we can go ahead and cover that caulking to make it last longer and make it look good with our granules from our touch-up kit. Alright, when we're doing an easy vent on barrel vault directed deck, we're going to go ahead and cut our hole out approximately 29 inches by 5 inches. We recommend putting a screen over the top, that way we don't get any insects inside the attic. Then we're going to go ahead and take our easy vent, and it's going to install just like a panel. Go ahead and put our fasteners in the front nose and in the back shelf. Now before we put our next panel over the top, you got a couple different options. You can go ahead and take our bird stop, and you can go ahead and just fold it over on itself, as you see here. You can go ahead and lay this in caulking, and put this on top here, and then bring my next panel over the top. Or we can go ahead and use our M-seal, and go ahead and put that across the top. And then my next panel will sandwich into that one. We're doing a pipe penetration with our barrel vault. We'll go ahead and cut our base panel out, as you can see here. We're going to be using our pipe jack here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out so it fits into the coursing of the panel. You can see I can form this to the barrels as needed. So once we get that formed and cut, we'll take our caulking, go ahead and caulk the sides and the top. And then we'll set that down into the caulking. Then we're going to come back with our second panel, and we're going to cut our pipe jack out of that one. So we'll install this over the top, over our pipe flashing. We'll go ahead and fasten the panel. Once we get done fastening that panel, we're going to go ahead and take our caulking and come around that pipe. Go ahead and caulk that around that one, and then come back with our granules from our touch-up kit, and go ahead and throw the granules into that caulking. I'm doing a pipe with barrel vault. We can go ahead and do the following steps. Have our pipe here, we're going to cut out our pipe. Then we'll take a mallet and go ahead and flatten out that panel. We're going to go ahead and throw some caulking along the sides and bottoms of that hole. Then we'll go ahead and take our pipe jack and anything behind the coursing, we're going to fold over on itself to create a water stop. That way we don't get any water coming up behind it. Then we'll lay that in the caulking. You see here. And we can go ahead, throw some fasteners down into that caulking. We'll take our second panel and come over the top. We're going to cut out around our pipe. Then we'll go ahead and fasten that as normal. Once we get it all fastened, we're going to go ahead and come back with our caulking, caulk those fasteners, and also caulk around your pipe. And we'll follow that up by putting some of our granules from our touch-up kit into that caulking all the way around. Alright, we're dealing with a short course. We're going to want to go ahead and lay our panels out so we know where our barrel vault bird stop is going to lay to make sure everything stays in line. So we can go ahead and put our panels in here. Laying that out where we have our 1/2 inch overhang and make sure my barrels are all lining up my roof. So once we figure that out, put our bird stop in, have our 1/2 inch overhang, then we go ahead and start fastening that panel as normal. And make sure we always keep our short courses down at the eave line and not in the middle of the panels. And then always make sure we're getting our fasteners in the back shelf. Make sure we get those all the way across. And then once we figure out where our panel is going to lie, we're going to want to go ahead and put our M-sill underneath that. So we'll figure where that is. We'll go ahead and place that so no wind-driven rain gets into the system. Then we'll go ahead and just sandwich that panel down. And we're going to fasten down through the top. And we can continue fastening our panels as normal, making sure everything's down nice and tight. Now these bottom row screws, since they're down through the top, just like our bottom row, we will have to come back and caulk all of these and use our granules and put them in there to protect those screws. Alright, once we get all our panels in on the short course, be ready to go ahead and do the trim caps up the side here. So we just have our same buildup as normal, bend up the panels, then we'll just come in with our end disc, and then we'll go ahead, start installing these. Putting our fasteners down through the top into that 2x2, and then 2 into the fascia board. Then just continue up your rake as normal. Fasten those. Then when we get to our top piece, we're going to go ahead and notch out our fascia. So we got a nice clean miter into our fascia, and then we'll have to notch so it fits underneath the cap, or underneath the panel. So once we get underneath that one, make sure everything's nice and straight and tight, and then go ahead and fasten that one. And then we can go ahead and fasten our panels. You can see I just go ahead and notch that around and then force these down into place. Fasten normal along the front on this guy. And then when we get to our top row, we'll go ahead and fasten down through the top as normal. And then we can go ahead and finish fastening around the detail. And then once we're done here, we can go ahead and take our caulking, anything through the top screws here, top through here, here as well. And go ahead and take your granules and go ahead and put that into that caulking. Alright, when we want to put a solar hook into a direct-to-deck barrel vault, we'll use our direct-to-deck solar mount. We'll locate our rafter. Once we locate our rafter, we're going to go ahead and pre-drill our holes. And we can come back, caulk along those holes, and then we can place our solar mount there. Then we're going to go ahead and take our lag bolts and put them in those pre-drilled holes. Then we can go ahead and install that next panel. And we'll put a fastener on either side of the bracket. Alright, so when we go into a dormer valley, we're going to want to use our valley extension out of our flat stock along with our water stops here on the sides. And how we'll go about this is first we'll go ahead and flash our counter flash on the sidewall and then bring our drip edge over the top of our counter flash. Then we'll go ahead and take our mallet, flatten out that panel. Then we can either take our M-Still and put that across there, or we can take some caulking and go ahead and caulk across. Then we'll take our valley extension that we created, 2 layers of caulking there, and we'll go ahead and slide that into place. Making sure we have at least 3/4 of an inch overhanging our fascia and also our edge of our panel here. Then we'll go ahead and use our washer fasteners and fasten this down. Now we'll be ready to come back with our panels. Go ahead and fasten those as normal. Remember not to get any fasteners over that valley pan. Then on this side, since we have our drip edge underneath, we can go ahead and take a piece of our bird stop and just make a little bird stop over the valley pan. And go ahead and stitch that in. And that will install just like normal, fasten accordingly. And then we can decide to use, if we want, we can go ahead and use that valley cover as well. And just make sure we use our 3/4 inch screws to go ahead and fasten that. And make sure we do not block our water flow, so overhang that so the water's got somewhere to get out. Alright, so when we're all done, we're going to come back with our touch-up And you can see on our bottom row screws, we're going to go ahead and come throw some caulking on those. All on my bottom ones going down through the top. Or anywhere there's blemishes or anything like that, we can come back with our touch-up kit with the granules. And then we can go ahead and doctor those up.